Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming to check out my throwback review of Sing the Sorrow by AFI. Before we get to that review, I do want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, My Emo Phase. That's right, My Emo Phase has decided to team up with me for this video. They sponsored it due to the fact that I did attempt to steal guitarist Jade Puget of AFI's look back in around 2008. The look unfortunately didn't quite work out for me, but it could work for you. Have you thought about having an emo phase? Check out Sing the Sorrow on iTunes now. What's up everyone, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John and it's time for a throwback review of the 2003 album Sing the Sorrow by AFI, A Fire Inside. This record always set my emo, angsty, introverted emo heart ablaze in my late teenage years in particular, and it's still held with me to this day, but it didn't have the honor of being my first full-length exposure to AFI. That award goes to December Underground, which was one of the first two albums that I ever purchased with my own money. AFI were largely aligned and associated with the 90s punk movement from their inception up through The Art of Drowning in 2000. They played varying degrees of the genre and definitely shook things up several times. And once Sing the Sorrow released in 2003, while critics were pretty receptive to it, I think the biggest critics were within AFI's own fan base. This was looked to as their sellout moment, and to this day, some fans still draw the hard line in the sand saying, "I will not cross past The Art of Drowning, they're dead to me from this point on, you sellouts." To be fair, there was a drastic change in sound in between The Art of Drowning and Sing the Sorrow. That was something that I noted on a recent episode of my Series 7 on Sunday. If you would like to check that out, there were 6 other records in addition to AFI's drastic changes that we talked about. Tap the card on screen or else the link at the end of the video. AFI left behind their home Nitro Records, which had been their label for quite some time, definitely more of a punk rock label, in favor of Dreamworks, which eventually dissolved into Universal Music Group. That big label was something that got people worried. And at the time when I was getting into all this music, I didn't care about labels. I didn't care outside of do I love and connect with this music. And to me, still to this day, Sing the Sorrow holds up as a masterpiece of not just the emo undertones, but also the flair for the dramatic, for the angst, for the anger, and also the passion. Everything is so well played, well sung. It all comes together, and my heart was immediately stirred as a young teenager when I heard Girls Not Grey for the first time on Fuse. On Sing the Sorrow, the band were able to break slightly away from the narrative of punk while still retaining some of the angry and at times over-the-top dramatic influences. There's definitely a rage that's simmering and at times boiling over on Sing the Sorrow, but they don't always feel the need to shout it out themselves. They more so let the lyrics and the music speak. There's a magnetic energy on Sing the Sorrow that they've unfortunately never again been able to match. It's catchy and diverse, thoroughly entertaining, and simply a blast to listen to. In fact, I would say that it's their most musically innovative record, with the guitar tones that they used here, the blistering bass, the drums that are definitely worthy of an encore in the sense that I often give them replays, and I really feel that Davey Havok grew as a vocalist here, because yes, there's shouted and scream sections, but there's also a lot of really good cleans that are so catchy, but also just well performed and executed. This album holds up like a true gem because of its tight musical rhythms, distinct vocal moments from Davey Havok that range from scream to poetic, and a ton of angst that really does hit home without feeling cheap or dated. Some might disagree, but I actually really dig the production and mixing on this record. We had on one hand Jerry Finn, who had been known to work with Blink-182 on some of their biggest records, in addition to Butch Vig, who you probably know for drumming with Garbage, also for producing Nevermind, selling over 10 million copies, working with the Foo Fighters and Green Day as well. Huge names right there, but they did a great job at helping them hone their sound. There's definitely an argument to be made if this is a seasonal record or not, and for me, it's able to be played any time of the year. Look at me, I'm reviewing it in the spring. It came out in the spring, but almost at times it feels like more of a fall or winter record, but I could see it kind of making sense for any of the 4 seasons. The flow of this record is also outstanding. I love the fact that they can change from something like Silver Silver and Cold, which is more moody, more atmospheric, into Dancing Through Sunday, which is one of my favorite, more high-octane, high-energy tracks, and they keep that up the entire time. Even on the hidden tracks at the end, I like the fact that they're able to kind of space things out without ever really losing us. Sing the Sorrow shoots from the hip and knows its strengths. It may not always be revolutionary, but for them to break through to the mainstream with a sound that was still pretty intense and well written impresses me, even though some of the punk purists in the crowd still hate it. Now the time has come for the track list breakdown, and while we can't talk about every single song, I want to talk about some of the most important cuts, some of the biggest highlights, and also some of the most noteworthy ones that have stood the test of time. I've got a lot of love for The Great Disappointment, a track that kind of steadily crawls in over its first minute or so. It's something that feels like it went on to influence other bands like Brand New and say albums like The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me, the guitar tone that was used there, the suspense that they used to pull you in, but it also ends up hitting pretty hard once you really get going with the track. I love the love that they gave to Hunter's bass on this one. It's something that's so hypnotic, and it eventually rains down with a larger-than-life chorus, and it has you shouting along, "I was wasting away," before those cascade of guitars come down. We gotta talk about the Leaving song, part 1 and 2, because although the hard-hitting part 2 might be the single and the fan favorite that most remember, but we also have to show some love to part 1, which actually comes later in the album, and I feel that part 2 kinda gave a little bit of foreshadowing before we actually get to it. This Celluloid Dream always wowed me with the fact that it had such spirited, vivacious guitars that really do come to life. They keep the energy high, but it's also a little bit less heavy in some ways, if that actually makes sense. The song is incredibly catchy and hooky and well done to me, and I love that they're able to pull off this balance because you've got tracks like that, but then on the other hand, you've got a single, Silver and Cold, which is a little bit slower, but still intense in the chorus. I feel like tracks like Silver and Cold actually prove to me how strong the rhythm section of the group is, and just how great the backing vocals can be, how they can propel a track forward. Now, after Silver and Cold, we move immediately into the next track, Dancing Through Sunday, which is kind of a shouty rampage of guts and glory, sweeping anyone in the way under the rug. Dancing and Misery became quite the rage throughout the 2000s, with AFI being one of the bands kind of carrying the torch and having some of the more emo lyrical tendencies, while also still keeping the tempo relatively high. This song, in fact, is all aces all the way, and that guitar solo on top, just the little cherry that they placed there, it's all coming up fucking roses. Bleed Black was definitely a generational jam. It was a rally cry for the misfit kids, the outcasts, the emos, the goths, everybody who maybe felt less than. Bleed Black, because that's what's in our soul. And this song is extremely catchy. Also, there's a really nice breakdown here. The chorus is definitely shout-along worthy, and there's even a little fake out on the song, which makes you think, oh, they're just gonna quietly, oh, just kidding, they're coming right back in, and they are hitting you upside the head with that catchy final chorus. Finally, we've got to give some love to the closing track, But Home is Nowhere, which again still gets me to this day. It's now shown on streaming services as 2 separate tracks. Initially it had a couple of different hidden tracks, the spoken word, and of course this Time Imperfect. And this is an epic closer if I've ever seen one. Definitely one of my favorites of all time. Yes, it's long, but it's so worth it because But Home is Nowhere is so damn dense in many different ways. I love the musicality, the drumming on this track, the guitars and bass are kind of off the charts to me. I don't know why this one hits me so much harder than even some of the other fantastic cuts on this record. But then we move into the spoken word passage, and that's something that breaks down to just a piano, and it's kind of chilling. It almost makes you feel like you're within a horror film and you're building up to some sort of suspense, especially once those cinematic strings kick in. And then finally, it eventually gives way to This Time Imperfect, which, again, a top-notch favorite for me. This is of the utmost quality. This is something that I keep coming back to, and I've embraced even more over time, because it has something so great. Davey's vocals here are impeccable, and Jade's unique guitar, the way that he's able to kind of layer it on, it feels different from a lot of the things that they did on Sing the Sorrow, and the overwhelming intensity of the drums and places, it makes this one of my timeless favorites, one of my favorite AFI songs at this point, perhaps. I can't stop singing the praises of Sing the Sorrow. This is a record that has so much to offer. It's a unique experience, and like I said, unfortunately, they never reached these heights again, in my opinion, but I do feel that this record deserves a big, fat fucking 5 out of 5, a perfect score for what is a perfect album in my eyes. One of my favorites of all time, but I'd love to know, what do you guys think about Sing the Sorrow? If you've only heard the singles, maybe you haven't heard the record in a while, there's a link to stream it down below. And also let me know in the comments section, what is your favorite AFI album? Thank you so much for tuning into this throwback review. If you like these, then please drop a like on the video. It lets me know that you want to see more videos like this and for me to cover more older albums in the future. If you want to see another AFI video, tap here. Socials in the description. I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.